My sister made $50,000 by pretending her son had cancer. I had to make the hardest choice of my life. I, 34F, never thought I'd be writing this, but I need to get this off my chest and maybe get some perspective on whether I did the right thing. This involves my sister, her son, and a GoFundMe campaign that turned into a family-destroying nightmare. It's a long post, so bear with me. It started 3 months ago when my sister shared a GoFundMe link in our family group chat. According to her post, my nephew had been diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia that required specialized treatment. The campaign aimed to raise $50,000 for his treatment and associated costs. She included several heart-wrenching photos of him in a hospital bed, looking pale and tired, with various medical equipment around him. The post detailed his supposed symptoms, the specialized treatment he needed, and how insurance wouldn't cover most of it due to the experimental nature of the procedure. I was absolutely devastated. My nephew and I have always been incredibly close. I've been there for every birthday, school event, and holiday since he was born. He's like a son to me, especially since I found out I can't have children of my own after multiple failed IVF attempts. When he was younger, I would babysit him 3 times a week while my sister worked late shifts. We have this tradition where every Sunday, we'd make chocolate chip pancakes together and watch cartoons. He'd always save the biggest pancake for me, saying it was because I was his favorite aunt. Without hesitation, I donated $5,000 from my savings, money I'd been setting aside for a down payment on a house. I shared the campaign with everyone I knew, wrote emotional posts about my brave nephew fighting cancer, and even organized a fundraiser at my workplace. My sister had always been the family favorite, the charismatic one everyone loved, so when she started posting daily updates about my nephew's treatment, people were quick to help. The response was overwhelming. Our small community, despite still recovering from economic hardships post-pandemic, rallied around them. My sister's church held bake sales and prayer vigils. My co-workers, many of whom had never even met my nephew, donated generously. Local businesses organized fundraising events. Within weeks, they'd raised over $45,000. My sister would post tearful thank you videos, talking about how blessed they were to have such a supportive community. But something felt off. At first, they were small things I brushed aside. My sister kept making excuses about why I couldn't visit my nephew in the hospital. He's in isolation, she'd say. Or he's too tired for visitors. Or the doctors are running tests right now. When I offered to coordinate with the hospital to send care packages or arrange virtual visits, she'd change the subject or say the hospital had strict policies about such things. I started noticing other inconsistencies. She'd post about him having a rough day with chemo, but then I'd see him in the background of her Instagram stories, looking perfectly fine. When I'd ask about it, she'd say the videos were from before, or that he was having a good day. She became increasingly evasive about which doctors were treating him, always giving vague answers about specialists. The breaking point came when I ran into my nephew's best friend's mother at the grocery store. She mentioned seeing my nephew at the mall the previous weekend, looking perfectly healthy and playing at the arcade with her son. My heart stopped. According to my sister's updates, he should have been in the hospital that weekend receiving an intensive round of chemotherapy. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the little things that hadn't added up. The way my sister would get defensive when asked specific questions about his treatment. How she never seemed to know basic medical terminology despite claiming to be at the hospital every day. The way she'd recently bought a new car but claimed it was used, and a necessity for all the hospital trips. I started digging. Called the hospital where she claimed he was being treated. They had no record of any patient matching his description. Called 3 other hospitals in the area, same result. The medical documents she'd shared in the family group? I showed them to my friend who's a nurse. She pointed out obvious inconsistencies and errors that made it clear they were forged. The photos? All staged. My sister had apparently convinced my nephew to pose with borrowed medical equipment in their spare bedroom. She'd even made him use makeup to look sicker, telling him it was for a special family project. The medical equipment, I later learned, came from her friend who worked at a medical supply store. I confronted her privately first, wanting to give her a chance to explain. We met at a coffee shop, and I laid out everything I'd discovered. She broke down almost immediately, admitted everything. Said she was desperate because of gambling debts she'd hidden from everyone. Claimed she'd pay everyone back once she got back on her feet. But I'd seen her social media posts, the new designer bags, the weekend trips to Vegas, the expensive restaurant check-ins. She'd been living it up while people in our community sacrificed to help her supposedly sick child. What shocked me most was learning my nephew had no idea about the GoFundMe. He thought the hospital photos were for a family project about what it's like to be in the hospital. She'd told him to act sick for the photos, making it into a game. He had no clue his mother was using his image to scam people. I gave her 24 hours to come clean and return the money. She spent that time alternating between begging me to keep quiet and threatening me. First, she offered to split the money with me if I stayed silent. When that didn't work, she threatened to tell everyone I had helped her plan the whole thing. Then she threatened to tell my boss about a minor mistake I'd made at work years ago. Finally, she threatened to make sure I never saw my nephew again. After the 24 hours passed with no action from her, I reported the fraud to GoFundMe and the police. Posted the truth on the campaign page. Contacted everyone I knew who had donated. The fallout was nuclear. My sister was arrested at work. My nephew, confused and terrified, was picked up from school by his dad. Most of our extended family is divided. Some think I should have handled it within the family. Others are thankful I exposed the truth before more people were deceived. My parents haven't spoken to me in weeks, saying I destroyed the family by getting the police involved instead of finding a private solution. But I keep thinking about all those people who donated their hard-earned money. The elderly church members who gave from their pension funds. My co-workers who skipped lunches to contribute. The local coffee shop owner who donated a month's profits despite barely staying afloat. The high school students who organized a fundraiser and donated their allowances. Real people with real struggles who gave what they could to help a sick child. Except there was no sick child, just my sister's greed. My nephew sends me messages saying he misses me and our Sunday pancakes, but his dad thinks it's better to keep some distance until things settle. He's in therapy now, trying to process what his mother did and why. I understand the need for space, but every message from him breaks my heart all over again. Yesterday, he sent me a photo of pancakes he made, saying they weren't as good as ours, but he's practicing. I cried for hours after seeing that. The legal situation is getting serious. The total fraud amount makes it a felony, and given the number of victims and the exploitation of a child, the prosecutors are pushing for significant charges. My parents are begging me to recant my police statement, saying family should protect family. They keep saying she made a mistake and deserves a second chance. But I keep thinking about my nephew, and what example we'd be setting by covering this up. What message would it send him about right and wrong? I don't regret exposing the truth, but the cost has been enormous. My family is shattered. My nephew is traumatized. Every time I go to our usual Sunday breakfast spot, I see his favorite booth empty, and it feels like a punch to the gut. My sister's actions didn't just hurt the people she scammed. They destroyed the trust and bonds that held our family together. Was I wrong to involve the police? Should I have tried harder to handle this privately? I believe I did the right thing, but seeing my family torn apart makes me question everything. The weight of this decision keeps me up at night. Edit. Some people are asking about the money. GoFundMe has refunded most donors, and the police are working on recovering the rest. My sister spent about $35,000 before I discovered the truth. They've frozen her accounts, but a lot of the money was spent on cash purchases that are hard to trace. Edit 2. Thank you for all the supportive comments. To clarify, yes, my nephew is safe with his dad, who has full custody now. And no, I won't recant my statement. I just needed to vent about the family pressure. The therapy is helping him, and his dad says he's slowly starting to understand none of this was his fault. Edit 3. Stop sending me threatening messages about betraying family. Fraud is fraud, regardless of who commits it. And to the people asking for my sister's info to teach her a lesson. No. Just no. Edit 4. My sister's friend from the medical supply store has also been charged for helping her stage the photos. She claims she didn't know about the GoFundMe and thought it was really for a family project. But evidence suggests otherwise. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.